Style. I have it, and you don't, which makes me objectively better than you, because the juice is temporary, but the sauce is eternal. And it's not just eternal, it's also omnipresent. Sauce is everywhere, in our water, in our culture, in our history, in our sauce. It's even in our video games. Something I often find myself saying whenever I play games on my channel is how much I love the style of a certain game. But I've never really described what that means. It's kind of like the rule of cool. It's an overall feeling, it's the atmosphere, it's the music, it's the art style. It all culminates into the style of a game. For example, all the From Software games look pretty similar, even down to the modeling. And to a certain extent, they play similarly too. But their main difference is in the stylistic choices, like when mangaka draw each other's characters. The source material is the same, but there's very unique and subtle differences. So, I want to take some time to shout out some games that I think prioritize style and stand out as being artistically unique. What authority do I have to talk about style, you ask? Well, my grandma once said I look very smart, so kill yourself. I've also played a lot of games, more than 2 decades worth now. And the standards for video game reviews aren't exactly high, so it's me or the exaggerated swagger of a black teen. What's it gonna be? Anyway, I'm getting a bit off track. Let's start the list with a solid classic. Wet feels like a fever dream I had once, in which Quentin Tarantino decided to make video games instead of movies, and liked racism and booty instead of racism and feet. If you like blood, gang violence, gun fu, samurai swords, tattoos, car chases, rock soundtracks, parkour, film burning transitions, leather jackets, revolvers, and most importantly, racist early 2000s stereotypes, then you are contractually obligated to play Wet. It's pretty hard to get a copy of now, since it was originally released on PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, and from what I can see there's no options to play it on modern consoles, which is a shame because it also holds up gameplay wise, as much as a game from 2009 can, anyway. The movement's janky as fuck, and some of the models could use some work, but the entire game is dedicated to one thing, and one thing only: making you feel like the baddest bitch in the game, and goddamn does it do it. I kind of blew my load there in the first paragraph, so I'm struggling not to repeat myself, but that really does just sum it up. Every element culminates into making it feel less like a game and more like a 90s action movie, and to this day, I have yet to see anything match its Joanne Jett-esque vibes. There's also the blood levels, which start with Ruby Malone, spelled with an I because it's cooler, shooting someone in the face, splattering her own face with blood, and then going on a monochrome shaded killing spree with fast-paced rock blaring the entire time. At one point this happens while doing parkour between vehicles, and did I mention this game has more slow motion than my Alzheimer's ridden granddad? I know a lot of people don't like QTEs too, but they've always been a guilty pleasure of mine, and there are plenty in Wet. This might be a negative for a lot of people, but for me personally, it only continued the running theme of it being an action movie in game format. All the characters are quirky with cool designs and pretty good voice acting as well. Overall, if you somehow get your hands on it, it's more than worth it. It's a pretty short experience, but I think that's for the best. It's a wild roller coaster that stays fun the whole way through. Now let's go the complete opposite direction with Disco Elysium. You've likely heard of this game, and if you've heard of it, you likely adore it. There's a lot to be discussed here with the impasto character portraits, expressionist art style, bleak environments, and varied character designs, but more than anything, the exceptional voice acting couples with easily the most unique dialogue I've ever seen in any piece of media ever. And that's what really gives Disco Elysium the flair. I'm notoriously hard to get a laugh out of, but Disco Elysium has made me cry laughing on multiple occasions, and I am not the only one. And yes, having a comedic tone is definitely a stylistic choice. Why do you think everyone suddenly finds clowns sexy? The inconsistent art styles, the dominating inner monologues you have with yourself, the themes of politics, morality, misery, loss, addiction, all assist the various horrible decisions you can make in the game. It's a train wreck that you just can't take your eyes off of, both because it's so depressing, but also really fascinating. The blend of complete absurdity and surprisingly real social commentary, it just works, and I really don't know how to explain why. There has never been a game like Disco Elysium, and there never will be. Just fucking play it. Moving on, I recently made a video about some of my favorite roguelikes. In that video, I discussed Hades and Inscription, both of which are great picks for this video. And while I will give Inscription an honorable mention as an incredibly atmospheric horror/mystery game, there is another game I'm going to talk about which does the same thing but better, and overall, Hades is just a lot more stylish. I mean, just the soundtrack alone is so fucking heavy. The different enemies and environments that change as you get closer to the surface is a nice touch, getting less and less ghostly and dead. The small details like Zagreus' fire feet on the snow, the absolutely god-tier character portraits, the incredible voice acting, the customizable hub world, the attractive and recognizable icons. It's the little things that tie it all together, but I'd be lying if I didn't say that it isn't heavily carried by the stunning visuals and bass lines so deep they poke your lungs. It's calm when it needs to be calm, cute when it needs to be cute, exciting when it needs to be exciting, and emotional when it needs to be emotional. For a game that is constantly referencing old Greek mythos and various themes that come with that, it does a very good job of switching moods on a dime too. My only gripe is that Ares just looks so fucking pretty. Seriously, couldn't they just put his helmet on or at least fuck his face up a little bit? Is it just me? I just don't like his design specifically. Everybody else looks great. Anyway, moving on.
You bastards may take exactly what I give you!
As I mentioned, there's another game besides Inscription which delivers an atmospheric horror mystery, and that is Return of the Obra Dinn. It's got a monochromatic and old school style which mirrors point and click adventures you'd find on early Macintosh computers, which is perfect considering it's essentially a modern point and click adventure. I don't want to spoil too much, but it establishes pretty early on that there's something otherworldly about both you and the ship. As the mystery begins to unravel and you solve more of the mystery, the once clean boat starts to be littered with bodies, like pieces of a grim and gory puzzle. The separation of sound and dialogue from the still 3D environments not only keep the desired pace, but also lets you focus on what you need to at the time, as the use of dialogue, sound, effects, costumes, props, set pieces are all clues which you'll need to pay very close attention to if you want to solve the entire case. Overall, the attention to detail in this game is beyond impressive. It's one of my top 10 and will likely stay there for a very, very long time because it's just such a great game, and of course, stylized perfectly for the eldritch atmosphere it was trying to achieve. Now, if you'll indulge my dark and gloomy aesthetic for a moment longer, Bioshock, in a similar fashion to Return of the Obra Dinn, is a world full of strange monsters, deceptive mysteries, and a lot of fucking water. But it leans more into the action and survival horror genre. Personally, I've never been the biggest fan of the Bioshock games. They're fun, I like them, but I just don't think I like them as much as the average gamer. One thing I cannot fault them on though, the set pieces. I cannot think of another game that achieves the same level of grandiose world building. The dystopian and industrial underwater city of Rapture that's been left to decay and ruin always feels tense, with distant screams, constant dripping water ambience, insane muttering from the enemies, flickering bulbs, dimly lit environments, the isolating underwater landscapes. It's just so good at environmental storytelling. The eerie nature and unique locations are brimming with style. Then the absolute fucking psychos flipped the entire thing and pulled off the opposite in the Sky City of Columbia. Everything's bright, pristine and alive. There's music, sunshine, plant life, people, technology. It's a stark contrast. It's not long before this becomes just as creepy as Rapture though, with small hints of a dark underbelly at first, which spiral into full-on natural disaster level action sequences. All in all, it's an absolute masterclass of environmental design, and has an incredible steampunk style overcoat. Something that achieves similar sort of themes of classism, dystopian cities and control, but in a much more fun and upbeat style, is Hi-Fi Rush. This absolute gem of a game came out of fucking nowhere with a unique premise, dope art style, and a 10 out of 10 soundtrack. The entire world is centralized around the premise of being on beat, and I mean the entire world. The platforms move on beat, the enemies move on beat, you move on beat, your health bar moves on beat, the idle animations are on beat. If that's not style, I don't know what is. It's a colourful, funky and playful world with cool character designs, sick boss fights, unique mechanics and a cool story. There's even a copyright mode for streamers, which does somewhat dampen the experience, but they did as good of a job as they could considering how big of a factor music is in this game. And as someone who's constantly surfing YouTube for non-copyright music to use in my own videos that match the vibe, I know how hard that shit is. Another game which doesn't lean so heavily on the music from a gameplay standpoint, but is still heavily enhanced by it, is Persona 5. I don't need to break down why Persona 5 is stylish, but I'm gonna because you clicked the fucking video. I'm not a huge JRPG fan. Gameplay wise, although still great, I don't think Persona does anything drastically different. It feels kinda like a deck builder where you fuse different personas, kinda like Pokemon with type advantages and disadvantages, kinda like a dating sim where you fuck your teacher, and kinda like Final Fantasy where you kill God. But the thing that really cemented Persona 5 as one of my top 10 games is the sheer amount of style. I mean, it is a priority. There isn't a single aspect of the whole game which they didn't look at and think, how do we make this cool as shit? Every single frame is a wallpaper. The music is incredible, the character designs are great, the protagonist is fucking saucy, the sound effects are satisfying, even the pause menus, shop menus, main menus, the safe room menus, are all dripping with personality. Of all of the games in this list, I think Persona 5 easily clears the rest in regards to how much conscious effort they put into the overall feel and style, and it shows. For as much as Persona 5 made me love Japanese twinks, let's refuel our testosterone real quick with Doom. Stick with me here because I know that style isn't exactly the first word that comes to mind when you think of Doom. However, you must admit, for the overall vibe and style they tried to achieve, Doom is second to none. Wet was diverse in its approach, as there was a lot it wanted to achieve with its action movie-esque feel, but Doom is focused on one thing: pure, unadulterated violence. From the music, to the set pieces, to the enemy design, to your design, to the lore, to the weapons, to Doom Guy's overall lack of a give a shit for anything that isn't ripping and tearing, there really isn't anything that scratches that itch more. And if you really don't agree that Doom has style, listen to this rendition of The Only Thing They Fear Is You in major key. It's just so uplifting. Anyway, I'm going to close it out with another game that is instantly recognizable: the Borderlands games. It truly is no place for a hero. The post-apocalyptic world of Pandora, filled to the brim with junkyard settlements, sandy wastelands, and high-tech sci-fi weaponry, are all purposefully pretty bleak looking, run down and grimy for the most part, with muted colours. This contrasts extremely well with the array of colourful characters with their exaggerated proportions, over-the-top personalities, flamboyant outfits, and comic book cel-shaded flair. Just look at the fucking box art. It tells you everything you need. It's a game about the lawless Wild West, and I can't mention Borderlands without mentioning the weapons. Similar to the characters, they're also bursting with different personalities and colours that will pop out from the muted environments. It's unique, it's bold, and it's stylish. My point is, as a medium, gaming is so versatile in its repertoire, and there's so many ways you can change a game's feel. It's such an important feature that I feel it gets overlooked quite a lot. I can talk about this for pages and pages, whether it's Cyberpunk's unique world building and realistic Night City, Katana Zero's pixelated neo-noir visuals and psychedelic synthwave soundtrack, try saying that shit 5 times fast, Sunset Overdrive's colourful mayhem and energetic traversal options, The Wolf Among Us and its tortured city, tortured detective narrative, Sifu and its brutal colour-coded kung fu. The artistic choices are what every player is introduced to first before any gameplay, any story, any voice acting, anything. And I think is what people might even remember the most. Let me know if you guys enjoyed this, because as you can see, I've got a lot more games in mind that I'd love to gush over, so I've got probably at least 3 more videos worth of content on this shit. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed. Also comment any other games you think have an awesome style. Thank you for watching.